But is this assessment correct? Does it work for everyone? The truth is, I can't comment on every single college student in every college application in existence. Since a college application comes down to a number of things beyond simply a student's extracurriculars, solely focusing on them as a key to college acceptance would be incomplete. But let me point out some key things that every parent and student should be absolutely aware of. 1. Researching the schools you're applying to before applying to them is an important step in improving your odds of getting into that school. Every student should be aware of what type of student they're presenting themselves as well as the type of student the school they'd like to go to tends to accept. A student who applies to the wrong type of school can metaphorically shoot themselves in the foot before the application even begins and destroy their chances of getting into the schools they want. Students who can present themselves in a way as to catch the eye of the college they want stand a much better chance of getting into the school they want, as opposed to those who simply apply and play the odds hoping to win the grand prize. 2. There's a 3-tiered system of applying to and getting into college, and the probability that a student gets into a dream school changes based on which barrier they've crossed. To start, there are 3 main barriers students have to jump over to get into the schools of their dreams. These barriers are the academic barrier, the extracurricular and campus life barrier, and finally, the culture and story barrier. In an example before, we mentioned a scenario very similar to one found at a number of Ivy League schools, where 50,000 people apply for the school, and after going through each of the barriers, only 2,500 people accepted. That is about a 5% acceptance rate. However, what you have to keep in mind is that this acceptance rate is radically different once a person moves past the barrier in question. Let's say that, identical to the example before, a person is applying to a school which has 50,000 applicants and only 2,500 of them are accepted. Before the first round, their odds of getting to the university are 2,500 out of 50,000, 5%. Now let's say they make it out of the first round, second round. Now there are only 10,000 applicants competing for 2,500 spots. Just like that, their odds of getting to the university jump from 5% to 25%. 2,500 out of 10,000. Now finally, let's say that they make it out of the second round into the third round. Now there are only 5,000 applicants competing for 2,500 spots. Their odds of getting into the school they want is now a whopping 50%. The odds of getting into a school like Princeton, Stanford, or Yale changes depending on how many barriers a student is able to pass, and it can jump from as low as 5% at the beginning to as high as 80 or 90% after the first 2 barriers are crossed. And that leads me into point number 3. Focusing on one tier at a time is the best strategy students and parents can use to get into their dream schools. When getting into college, focusing on one thing at a time, one tier at a time, we've found is the best way of getting past each of the barriers into the school you want. What I've found through helping students and parents is that they usually get fixated on one of the barriers, usually the academic or extracurricular barrier, and often neglect the other barriers to their detriment. These are the parents and students who have taken the SAT and scored a 1540, but still spend hours trying to get a 1600, or in 15 clubs and activities, but think that 20 will increase their odds of getting into the school they want. This is simply not the case. Once a student is past a specific barrier, they don't need to focus on it as much anymore and can focus on getting over the next barrier. For example, once a student scores a 1540 on the SAT, we advise them to not spend any more time thinking about the SAT and instead spend time on their academics and extracurricular activities. Similarly, if a student has stellar SAT scores and incredible extracurriculars, they should dedicate most of their time to crafting an eye-catching story that'll help push them from a maybe into a yes once they apply for admission at an elite school. By focusing on one level at a time, students put themselves in the best position to succeed and to get exactly what they're looking for. Applying to college is like baking a cake. You need the right ingredients in the right order coupled with the right amount of time to get something incredible. However, none of this can work without the right recipe. That's what understanding how colleges select their students is like. It's understanding the recipe a college like Princeton uses to select their students so that you can position yourself in the right way and come out with an amazing cake. The pursuit of an Ivy League education, financial freedom, or a better life are not uncommon dreams. They're shared by many, including myself. Before you jump headfirst into the opportunity, you must take a second look to look around and ask the question, if they are doing everything right, why aren't they getting what they want? It's best to pause, think and understand what it really takes to make it. Then after you figure that out, proceed. Because if you don't, you'll just be another Ivy League hopeful who doesn't understand why they're on the outside looking in at a life that could have been.